There we are.
Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the Sisters Interview. My name is Ashaksi, and this is my sister, Sir Rifkin. We're from Ontier. And tonight, our very, very special guest is Sir Octamasades, Lion Ontier, also my husband, and that makes him Rifkin's brother-in-law. Welcome.
Lucky me.
Thank you for joining us. So we would like to have you start us off with your SCA origin story. How did you find the SCA and what made you fall in love with it?
Oh, goodness. I started off at 1989. I was in college and happened to take a fencing class. And a couple of folks from my fencing class, pretty friendly, and they said, "Oh, you got to come in and check out this event at the University of Oregon. It's a demo." So I went with them and showed up on the big green lawn outside the EMU at University of Oregon, and lo and behold, there are people all dressed kind of crazy, and some folks in armor hitting each other with sticks, and nobody was stopping them. So I was hooked from right there. Chance to get to hit your friends with sticks and dress up in cool armor and do all the fun stuff. And then,
did you know anybody at that first demo? Did you recognize anyone?
Nope, I didn't know anybody. I think maybe later I kind of put two and two together because Mrs. Raven went to my high school, but she was a year ahead of me. So.
But you didn't recognize her that day?
No, I don't even remember if she was at that particular event or not. But then after that, kind of got in with the fighter group and started going to some of the after evenings at this guy's house, and they were making armor in the shop, and some of the fighters would come and hang out there and just chillax. Some would work on armor, eat popcorn, that kind of stuff.
So did you go over there and make your armor?
Not right away. I was still trying to get into it for a college student. I spent the first year kind of my SCA career, if you want to say it, borrowing kits, and ended up fighting as a light for about a year until I could get my whole kit together to where it was my own. So we'd run around and throw spears and axes at people. So coming out of college doing track and field, it was pretty easy to transition to hit somebody with a 6-foot spear and or duct tape wrapped hose as a throwing axe. So they go down to Ontario West War. I remember doing that my first year.
When you say light, what do you mean? Because that means different things in different places.
So like a ranged weapon fighter. So an archer, a thrown weapons combatant. Back when we had to have all the screens on our helmets and the giant chevrons on our helmets. Some really awesome carpet armor.
So at that point in time, did you have anybody that was mentoring you?
No, my earliest fighter practices when I finally got my armor together, or right before then, Sir Morgan of Adiantum, before he was Sir Morgan, was always there. Sir Ambrose, actually a really big influence on my early fighting career as far as technique and stamina and the such. Miklos, great friend of mine. He was already established. He was part of the college group, and we have a long history of laughing at one another and fighting together. Master Timothy McDaniel, who later became my first Shiv. I was his squire originally when I got up to gumption to ask. He was there. Gosh, I know there's other folks that I'm forgetting. But once you borrowed Morgan's armor, and his helmet was one of those spun top helms, so when you got hit in the head, you lost all sound for about 2 minutes. And I found out later that he would wear earplugs. So it's pretty bad when you're down in the park and the ghetto blasters are going from the other folks down there, and all of a sudden there's no sound because somebody hit you in the head and you're deaf. Or Ambrose, the only way his coif would fit is you would have to put his helmet would fit would be to put his coif on. And after you've shared a tight-fitting coif with somebody who's sweating in it repeatedly, it's very much the inspiration to get your own stuff together.
So how long did it take you to get your own stuff together?
I would say the first set probably within a year. I made my first set of legs. They were all steel, hammered out. Um, in that, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name. Um, Miklos is watching; he would know. But so I made my own legs, kind of hobbled together, and you can see in some pictures later, various sets of really ugly body armor and gorget. And until recently, I had been fighting with the same leg belt since I had from 1989, 1990. And then I got the helmet, so that was pretty exciting.
Did you start Sword and Shield?
I was fighting right-handed, and I started with a heater, so sword and heater, and I fought that way. But the first few years of fighting were tough because I had injured my shoulder in high school, and so every time I would and I was fighting with a 40 or 42-inch longsword. Every time I tried to stop that from a bad blow, my shoulder would get wrenched, and I would have to take weeks off. And fortunately, Master Timothy McDaniel was a right-handed person who fought left-handed due to a shoulder injury. So shortly into my career, it was pretty obvious that I would have to switch. And when I switched to left hand, the right hand still wanted to be active. So fighting with a heater shield was dumb, and I couldn't control it. So that's when I switched to a round shield, which you can be a little more dynamic with. But yeah, so I grew up in Adiantum. And
So you started out in the summits in Adiantum, in
Yes.
Eugene, and eventually you went out for sergeantry.
Yep. To Marion Mavrothakis, if I'm pronouncing that right, Starveld. She is my first ever, she's what I categorize as my first Baroness. She was the first person that, other than Tim, that I would have any kind of feel with. So a group of us, Miklos was also a Baron, Lawrence the Marsh, not Lawrence the Marsh, sorry, wrong Lawrence. Affectionately referred to as Larry was one of her sergeants. Alan Younger was a sergeant. So we had a group of us that really enjoyed being sergeants together for her. And that's probably the hardest thing I ever did was all of the tests and tasks to become a sergeant. All the heraldry to remember and all that.
So for people who aren't from our tier, can you explain what the sergeantry process is and what's your motivation for doing it?
So in Adiantum, the sergeantry serve a baroness. And most baronets that I've been in, sergeant's trials usually last about anywhere from 6 months to a year, and it's being a well-rounded Scadian, for the lack of a better term, I would guess. You have to be somewhat proficient with multiple weapon styles. At least in Adiantum, when we were doing sergeantry, we got tested in several different weapon styles, heraldry, speaking.
Did you dance?
Dance, absolutely.
Did you play chess?
Yeah, we played games. We served at feasts. We did it all.
Is there anything that you learned for the sergeantry trials that you sort of fell in love with and kept doing?
I don't know if fell in love with. I have a huge respect for heraldry and for what the heralds have to do, because for me that was kind of the hardest to remember all the blazons and the orders that they have to come in and how it's used. So I have a lot of respect for that. Dance, I really enjoyed my early SCA winter feast and dancing, especially with the college group. Miklos and I would try and I think it was a version of a pavon where you're supposed to look stern at one another, and I could never look him in the eyes without giggling. So that was the hardest challenge with that. He would get a stern look, and I'd like, know that no, and then I'd start laughing. And to this day, he can do that to me. So, and just respect for all that goes into all those aspects of the SCA.
And back then, you weren't Scythian, right? Did you have a different name?
I started off Norse. My name was Thorolf Beiskaldi.
What was it?
Thorolf Beiskaldi.
Oh, that's a good one.
Bascaldi is Norse for the whiner or the bitcher. Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty apt, actually.
I own it. I own it.
Oh, that's good. I never knew that.
And then later in the SCA, I switched to Irish, pardon me. And then when I met my now beautiful wife, I succumbed to the Scythian way of life.
He succumbed.
I acquiesced. I accepted it wholeheartedly.
So do you remember what year you became a sergeant? Was that before you?
I think it was after I squired to Timothy.
I'm looking at, it's 1995. I'm looking at the OP. I realized it had,
right.
okay.
And this for a few years.
Before that, you got to serve on Royal Retinue
I don't think so.
for Rorick and Berengaria.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't really remember serving much. When I was squire to Master Timothy, it was all about service. We would show up to an event, we would set up our stuff, which took us about 10 minutes, and then we would spend the rest of that evening helping people set up and making sure everybody was taken care of.
And did that help you forge a lot of relationships?
A little bit, but yeah, it gives you a sense of purpose instead of just throwing your stuff down and hanging out and drinking beer. You would go help somebody else throw their stuff down and then drink with them, hang out and talk to people. It was really great to get to introduce to a lot of folks that I probably know now pretty well, but couldn't remember that I was introduced to them way back when. I'm still kind of a wide-eyed young guy from Adiantum, taking it all in.
From the sticks.
From the sticks, it's a little bit small, but not quite the sticks, I would say.
I think that core or central on tier tends to look at the summits that way, or has a lot in the past, and I think that we've come a long way towards kind of being kinder and incorporating and reaching out and not doing that anymore. So I was making a joke, but it was kind of inappropriate. I'm sorry.
Growing up in Adiantum, the diversity of folks and the inspiration, both fighting and in the arts. I mean, I don't know if either of you ever went, but there was an event, Amergan's Revenge. And that still to this day is like one of the epitomes of just awesome SCA. It was all about bardic skills. It's when I first ran into Martin de Harper, and when he was married to Ariel de Courtney. Right?
Ariel de Courtney.
I still remember them singing together. It still makes me.
I remember that too.
Yeah, but you've got Amergan's Revenge, where you've got this big hall up on top of this kind of mountainous area, fires going, and all of these performers are just laying it out there in the most magical way. It was really transportive, and that's like one of my early SCA memories was listening to them or sitting around fire afterwards with Dublin O'Gwyn playing a goddamn Goodwill wooden bowl like practice. Valorant players are playing $3,000 drums, and he would just make that bowl. It was awesome. He'd make it sing. That was my first love of that kind of music and bardic. There were countless people there that just were really amazing. And that event to me was almost on par with like a Sport of Kings. I mean, for the arts, those folks showing up, and you spend a whole weekend just eating amazing food. And I even got to cook for some of that and make desserts and stuff. So it was a really neat experience. So I really enjoyed that. And when you see the 12th nights and the Adiantum folks are making those stained glass,
They're amazing.
Holy cow.
They're amazing.
It is really an amazing cultural group. They really go all out.
Was it a principality when you were down there?
No, after I left, a couple years after I left, then they changed to a principality.
Okay.
And did you get into fiber arts at that point as well?
Maybe a little bit, kind of on the fringe of that. It would have been more closer to right before I left that I really got into fiber arts. Maybe maybe 3 or 4 years before I moved to Portland. And then we got into felting and fiber arts and did some of that. I don't I don't remember how much at
I
that
don't
time.
have to dwell on it. I just was
Uh,
kind of trying to throw that in there.
That and then to balance out immigrant revenge with Eagles. I mean, back when it was at Zumwalt and when I started, the Varangians were still kind of seemed to me to be at that height of what they did, and they were always a mystical, magical superheroes that camped over in the trees, and put on the torchlight tourneys, where you would have just a home gang that's only laid out by like some chopped wood, and you would just be called out if you stepped out of this imaginary circle there. And it was pretty awesome to get to fight and play in that. And those lists were pretty amazing. I got the fortunate at one of my last Eagles that I fought in when they had the big tournaments to fight Torval. And the only reason he had come out to fight, I think, was because they had a matching bench or matching table to the one that he had won at an Eagles previously, I think is what I remember hearing. And I was so proud because he had to close on me 3 times. He legged me, he came in to finish me, and I managed to defend, and then he just aced me at the last. So that was kind of fun. It was pretty neat. I remember Thorin coming down and watching fights and fighting, and it was my first glimpse at all those heroes that lived up north that I never traveled to go see. That, and if you haven't played North Stickball at an Eagles, when you got some angry half-naked guy or girl yanking you off a pile of folks, you haven't lived. So
Guess I haven't lived then.
yeah, next Eagles, stickball. I think it's tamed down a lot from what it used to be, but the prize was always good. The Odie Athelbros drink that if you saw the bottom of your mug after drinking it, you were in trouble.
I'll have to give Eagles another shot.
Changed a lot from the original, but it's back to that hometown feel, I think.
Well, especially for you, because it is going home, right?
Yeah. It's nice. I miss those small events sometimes.
So were you focused on fighting when you first started, or were you sort of like dabbling in everything?
I was really into we did the college group. We had a college group down there, so we had a dance night. So we would do that. But we were going to 3 practices a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And I wish that I sort of had that focus and maybe a little more understanding of the mechanics that I did later when I was doing that, because I see some folks coming into the SCA now and they really have a good grasp on that from the get-go, and they're doing the practices, and man, I just think what I could have achieved more earlier on had I had some more of that.
Well, you have sort of an Eastern philosophy towards fighting. Do you come from a martial arts background?
I did karate, Okinawan karate when I was in college. I did some Tai Chi after that. I've done studied a little bit of Kung Fu early on, and then more recently, I've found some teachers for Tai Chi and Kung Fu that I've been exploring and working with who are pretty amazing. I really like Tai Chi. I like the movement. Not quite so hard of a style, nice and flow with that ability to then, if you do something slow, you can make it fast and make it controlled. I like the body mechanics and the body awareness, and coupled with what we're going through with COVID now and some folks that I've been playing with online, it's just opened up a whole new understanding of body mechanics.
They're all watching and they have questions, but we'll get actually, you know what? If you could turn your mic up a little bit, the closed captioning isn't picking you up.
Okay.
Or get closer.
I can sit a little bit closer
So
to the
can,
camera.
really see into your face. Yeah.
See into my soul.
Yeah.
Or if it's not too bad, I can always put my my headset back on. Okay. What were we talking about?
So you ended up squiring to Master Timothy.
Yep. Master Timothy McDaniel Grendelskin. He was still a squire when I first started fighting, and then he got knighted shortly thereafter.
and well, he got admitted to the Order of the Chivalry.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. Yes, he was a master. Yes.
There aren't very many masters in non-tier, so that's an honest mistake.
Yeah.
There were 3 at the time. Master Corwin, Master Timothy, and Master Grendel.
Yeah. And you wore your squire's belt not as a belt, you wore it as a baldric.
He made me wear it as a belt until I could explain to him why I wanted to be a master.
Ooh, explain to us why you wanted to be a master.
Well, at the time, being new to the SCA and not really coming from any type of background with any kind of fealty swearing, master just made sense to me because I couldn't really wrap my brain around swearing an oath of fealty to somebody that I might not respect, even though they, by right of arms, were able to be king or queen in their own right. So back then, it made sense to me that, okay, I want to be a master. I want to swear an oath to the throne, maybe not necessarily the person sitting on the throne. And I didn't really understand that and what all that meant, I think, as much as I do now, or rather my perception has changed, and kind of realizing what it means to be a knight and your duty, that oath. When you hear that oath a few times, and you see the people that are taking that oath, even the people that aren't taking the oath, that are sitting there and they're miming the words as somebody is taking the oath, that's pretty powerful. And there's more to it than just swearing fealty to a person. Becoming a knight is really a relationship that you're adopting, and you're taking on a way of life that has to be more than just your weekend warrior game. It's something you have to wear all the time. So I kind of realized that and realized a little deeper meaning, and not that it's just an oath, but it's an obligation. So then, and when I met Alfred, that rang true even more. So that's when I changed back with the baldric.
And how did that transition between being Timothy's squire and squiring to Alfred take place?
I had moved up to Portland for work. I find a job and a little change of scenery. And I think at the time, Timothy was kind of, he's an amazing guy, but he's very black and white, and he sees things a certain way. So some things he had a hard time letting go of. And we all know the politics in the SCA can get interesting. So he had kind of backed off playing. It wasn't quite as active. And Timothy, great man, but him and 2 of his best friends in a room is a crowded room. He's very much a kind of a solitary guy. He likes his space. He likes his time, or did back then. So when I moved to Portland, it was even harder to kind of stay in communication and meeting new people and a new group. I kind of met Olin. We kind of hit it off. Would go with him in college to events and such. And then Olin got squired to Alfred, and I got to really get to know Alfred. And I asked Olin if he would mind if I were to approach Alfred. I didn't want to steal any of his thunder, but I really enjoyed the conversations and that Alfred's mind and him as a knight. So then I asked Alfred if he needed another squire.
Little did Olin know that you would become the favorite.
I might be the best squire, but I might not be the favorite. You never know. Fiach, we love Fiach. Thanks for paving the way, brother.
So His Grace Sven would like to know how Tim influenced your fighting style.
Oh goodness, he made it possible for me to fight left-handed. I mean, really, I don't know what I would have done. I don't think I could have believed that I could switch. I mean, just having him as a mentor and having the folks down there, Ambrose and Morgan and Miklos, all those guys pushing and mentoring. I think I would have tried to keep fighting right-handed, and eventually I probably would have just buggered my shoulder up to the point where I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. Tim taught me circles. He's the one that made me fight with a longer sword, so I would stop trying to stop the sword and cheat the angles. He taught me how to move with it in like a dance as opposed to fighting the circle. So that kind of started my whole technique and style.
So you have a pretty unique style. I mean, it's very movement based. And when do you think you started developing your own style? And how did Alfred influence it?
Oh my God. Um, I gotta think. I don't think, I mean, I think that I was applying tools that I was taught. You know, Alfred would show us technique and help us evolve our technique and sharpen the things. We would pick things up from other folks. Um, but frankly, I don't think I really started owning it and, or rather, understanding it until after I was knighted. When I was knighted, it's funny that weekend I felt like the worst of my career. I didn't feel like I was jiving. Everything felt clunky to me. I still remember why it was such a surprise because I felt like I was plateaued and not able to really put it all together. I was still very much throwing combos, you know, 2, 3, 4 shot combos, pre-planned. Um, I don't think my footwork was anywhere near what I've tried to make it. Um, but Alfred had given me all of these tools and they were packing together. And after that, I think I was able to start refining it. And I think as Sport of Kings showed up and I had to start teaching, that's when I really started to grok things more. When I had to start explaining it to other people in a fashion that they could understand, hopefully. So I had to find multiple different ways of speaking the same action or technique. Starts really open you up, or people give back when they're learning. That's the best thing about being a teacher. People give back, and then you're like, wow, that person just did that. I wonder if they realized that. And then, how did you do that? Okay. And then suddenly the evolution of your own beliefs change because you're exposed to all these new ideas. So I think that with the foundation that I got in Adiantum in my early career, and then finding the gift that is Alfred, um, gave me all these tools. And it's just taken a while after I was knighted to start to assemble those tools and unlearn some bad habits, unlearn some old beliefs, and strip these tools down a little bit more. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
I don't know if I ever told you this, but 6 months to a year before you got knighted, my Tim said to me, "Look at that guy. That guy is the future of fighting in Ontier." So you already had, I think, a lot of your own style. Like maybe it hadn't gelled yet, but it definitely stood out.
It felt hard back then. It felt hard.
Okay. Well, good. I'm glad it felt hard for you at some point.
Well, whatever. It felt like I think the evolution for me was, because I swear to God, I probably said this, and it's the dumbest thing I would have ever said as a fighter, is I used to say technique and actual physical technique and movement is the first 80% of fighting, and your mental game is the last 20%. I might have even said 90-10, and that's the dumbest thing I've ever said. I would tell people now that foundation of technique and physicality, that's the first 20% maybe. The last 80% is mental. And there's so many different areas in mental. It's learning about what I like to call big mind and small mind and how those relate and how those work together and how you foster one or the other. Understanding what you do mentally, understanding why you put your foot there, why that didn't work. Oh, your toes were pointed in the wrong. I mean, little things, hand technique, understanding yourself to the point where you don't have to think about it. Hell, all you have to do is think about what you want to do, or better yet, input comes in, your body reacts in a big mind situation. So that really was my growth after being knighted. And maybe it was because I no longer had that stress of feeling like people were looking at me. But frankly, before I was knighted, I only knew a few of the knights. I had never really talked to them all. I was pretty shy when it came to that. I was not as boisterous as I am now, but I mean, I just still remember the first time Michael the Tall came up and talked to me, and I'm like, and he treated me just like a buddy, you know, like an equal kind of a thing. I'm like, wow, I, this guy scares the shit out of me on the war field or on the tourney field, you know.
I'm so glad you got to be friends with him without getting scars on your legs from his leg shot.
Oh, he came down for a practice. He was working down here, and we fought one night, and it was brutal. And at the end of the night, we were both kind of gimpy. And he's like, "That was awesome. I haven't been hit so much in that leg. I can actually feel the blows," because we were both left-handed. He's evidently his other side from the right-handers up in Seattle was already numb and nerve damaged, so he couldn't feel it anymore. So yeah.
I want to go back to the mental part a little bit because I credit you on putting me sort of on the path to understanding like intellectually power generation and all the different ways that it can happen. Because I mean, there's a multitude of ways. And when you first get indoctrinated into the SCA fighting, it seems like everybody's like, oh, it's use your hips. And it's like, that's not really it. But you turned me on to this book by Peter Ralston called The Principles of Effortless Power or whatever. How did you find that kind of stuff? Because I mean, that was life-changing, or not life-changing, but fight-changing for me.
Yeah. I always just, I would say dumb luck, you know. I always, Ambros turned me on to Musashi when I was a very early fighter. That was like the first book. And I've given away more copies. Now I'm on like my 4th or 5th copy of it. And it's not a year that doesn't go by that I'm not rereading that. And it's not, I mean, if you just read it, it's pretty quick. It's not very deep. But when you start to practice, so anyways, so I was always into those kinds of books. I think I ran into a copy of Peter Ralston at Powell's, probably when I was hanging out looking at all the martial art books. And it's like, oh, Principles of Effortless Power. That sounds pretty cool. And I started reading about the author, and that dude, that book, he's a kind of, if you go and YouTube him, he's a bit wacky these days, very intrinsic, but he has 2 different paths because he was a world-class martial artist. And he has one that's that Principles of Effortless Power and fighting. And he has another one that he puts on these week-long intensives that are all about ripping your mentality, your reality, your truths down to like the bare raw nerves, getting down to the very finite real truths, because we cover ourselves in a variety of different things to keep ourselves safe, sane, whatever you want to call it, that might not be true. Even, you know, you change a pair of shoes, your truth changes, how you move is going to change. You change your armor a little bit, your truth has to change. If you go into a fight thinking you still have the mechanics or movement that you did in your plastic armor, and you're wearing metal cuirass, that's, you know, you're fighting, you're lying to yourself. Not necessarily in a bad way, but your opponent's going to really enjoy it. So he has that other aspect as well, which really got me into, that's like my Art of Becoming class. I try and get people to think about every day, just reevaluate what's honest. And it's not necessarily because people are lying. It's just, hey, things change. It's a very Buddhist thing, living and dying. Everything dies and comes back the next day, as far as what's right, what's wrong, how you're feeling, what your abilities are. So I've always been drawn to that kind of stuff. I love it. I love Qigong. I did a little class at Sporting Kings. I wasn't sure how excited people would be to do that, but I had a few people show up, and they were like, wow, we went out and fought after that, and it was great. I'm like, awesome, sweet. So I've always been involved in kind of that Eastern martial art philosophy and really trying to get to the heart of it.
When did you change your perspective of like most of the fight is physical and not mental to most of the fight being mental and not physical? And how did you discover for yourself all the different aspects of the mental part of the fight?
I think maybe a year or 2 after I was knighted. You know, I had really never fought in crowns before I was knighted. Master Timothy was always that was one of his things. If you're not ready to reign, don't fight in the tournament. There's always a chance you can win. So just being responsible, that was kind of his mantra. So I kind of just held on to that. And Don says I did fight in a crown.
You fought in Avalok's War Crown the first day, and then we got food poisoning that night, and you couldn't be on William's team because we left.
I don't
thought we
remember.
just all boycotted the second day.
Well,
Oh.
we were sick.
Oh,
It was
I have never been so in touch with a Biffy in my entire life, and I never want to do that again. Oh,
I don't want to hear about that.
oh. Bad ham or turkey or whatever it was. Anyway,
turkey.
so a couple of years after, and I started realizing that what was really holding me back was my ability to move with my opponents, to get ahead of my opponents. And I'm not a physically super strong dude. I'm not a sprinter. I don't have an amazing, my hands aren't that fast. So I was trying to figure out, how do I put all this together? And I'm lazy. So that's what I teach in my classes. I'm lazy. If I generate energy, if I generate something, I don't want to stop and let it go, because I got to do it again. And it takes time, it takes effort. So the whole part of that flow and movement. But I really started thinking about it. I think that it was also close to the time when I picked up the Peter Ralston book, and I started getting into that, and then teaching. And then I don't remember exactly when it was. And this was all my inner geek, right? Because nobody talked about that stuff. So I felt special, and not in a good way, that I'm like, is this valid? Is this something that makes sense? And then I remember going to I think it was a war up in east of Spokane or Idaho, and we stopped at Sven's house and spent the night, and I met Sean for the first time, Duke Sean. And didn't know him from Adam, and we were hanging out watching videos as you do at Sven's house in the basement. And I think this was still when they had the old house, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It was.
Sven ended up going to bed. Sean and I started talking about fighting, and we started talking about the mentality of fighting. And it was like instantly somebody spoke the same language that I spoke. And we started geeking out back and forth, and lo and behold, it's 4 a.m. I got to get up. I'm expected to go fight in a war, and I got to get up in 3 hours. Yeah, so that kind of helped to reinforce that the things I was thinking weren't just smoke and mirrors. It was somebody else actually kind of grokked it a bit, and it was sort of validating for me.
Yeah, that was a big deal. I remember you were like so excited that somebody finally understood what was going on in your brain.
Normally when I talked about that stuff, you'd get this, and people would just.
Okay, so to be fair, sometimes when you talk about fighting, it's a little esoteric.
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree. But people, if I'm talking and you are actually interested and you think that I'm full of shit or don't understand what I'm saying, ask questions. I mean, shit, I will talk fighting all day long. I will talk esoteric mental stuff all day long. I love it. It's like I've said, fighting for me now is church. It's gone from a crack habit to church. As Shaxi knows, I tried not to fight at a Sport of Kings once when Molly was first born, because
no, you didn't.
And then he was gone all day.
No. What happened was I said I needed you back at lunchtime to help with the kids, and you never came back. And so like 7 o'clock at night.
This was a different one though. So after that, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to fight in this grand tournament. I'm going to hang out here. Had all the ladies in the tent were chilling, and I can hear armor getting put on. And evidently I started fidgeting like a drug addict and scratching. And she looks at me and she's like, I get it. Go fight.
Yeah, it was I think that parenting in the SCA is really difficult, especially when you have, well, it's next level when both parents fight. And when we started our SCA careers separately, and we met in the SCA, and so we had a habit of just going off and doing our own things. We never really SCA'd together. And so when we had kids, Octamasades just went and did his own thing because that's what we were used to. And we really had to work hard at getting some balance. It was very challenging. And that was a really pivotal moment for both of us, I think, recognizing that fighting is an addiction and that he gets so wrapped up in it that he just can't think and he can't you know, and I have to accept that, and he had to accept that, and we had to kind of work together.
It's one track.
Yeah, and we've worked that out, and things are much better now, and he's the best dad ever, and I don't want to make the impression that he's not, because he's an amazing dad, right, Molly? Yeah, she says yes.
What were we talking about? Mental game?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you about 2003 was a really big year for you. You got knighted, and then
knighted before 2003 because
2002.
Okay, 2002, and then 2003 we went down to the west when Thorfinn and Kinswith were on the throne, and that was kind of a pivotal experience for you.
It was a lot of fun. It was probably only the third time I'd been out of Kingdom, because I hadn't traveled very much up until then, and it was fun because it was like going back home to Adiantum. It seemed like a smaller event. I didn't know any of the politics, so I was just some dude hanging out, and the Argent Angels took us in, and we hung out with those fabulous people. And they gave me all the scoop on the people I was going to fight, and I was allowed to fight in Crown, and that was super fun. And the pageantry of the banners, I'd never seen that before, was amazing. It was a good time.
It was. Can I tell my Duke Paul story from that event?
If you must.
I don't think I've heard this.
So Octa was fighting on the list field, and I was standing there watching him, and Duke Paul came up and stood a couple feet away from me, and watched for maybe a minute, very short amount of time. And he said, "Oh, that's all I need to know. He's left-handed," and he walked away. And I said, I know something you don't know. He is not really left-handed. And
I drew him in the next list.
Yeah.
So you know that Duke Sean calls you like the best fighter in Ontier that no one's ever heard of, right?
I think I've heard that, yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but it's also pretty cool. I mean, I would say thank you. That's a lot of respect, and I hope that I'm always worthy of that. And it also makes me feel like I would like to travel more, because I would love to go to some of these what do they call them, the big fighter gathering. I can't think of it all of a sudden. But yes, I would like to go in.
And
yeah.
Adult Swim and all that.
Adult Swim, that's what I was thinking of. I would like to do that, especially with the COVID and living vicariously through Zoom meetings, getting to see more folks and hear their stuff is pretty cool.
So I begged an invitation to the Mid-Realm Shiv Retreat. So you need to come with me.
All right.
It was like on a girls' weekend, but you can be an honorary girl.
Hey, we did that at Estrella. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was. I remember we went to Estrella together. That was cool.
Yeah, I bet Miles still remembers that trip.
Yeah, that was when Cass got knighted, right?
That was when Cass got knighted.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
I think that trip was very motivational for Miles.
Should we watch a video real quick?
Oh, no.
Sure. I think now's a good time. And then Octa has some pictures to share.
Okay, let's see if I can make this work. Do we see that?
Yeah. Yes.
Here we go.
Oh God.
Oh, where's the sound?
Oh no. Okay.
Wait. We need. Oh, it says it's at 100. Crap.
I think when you share, you have to select sound as well.
All right. Well, I got to do that. So let's try this again later after I figure out the sound.
I remember this day.
Yeah, that was a good day.
Yeah. Why don't you share your pictures?
My pictures? All right.
And you and I can talk about that while Rifkin figures out the sound, because it's important.
You see him?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, look how young you are there.
Oh, look at that ugly armor. At least it was covered in leather. Raggedy old gamson. That's my friend Brooks. We were quite the youngsters back then. There we are again. Eric, I can't blanking on his SCA name right now. He was Squire de Ambrose. This is back in Audience in the early days. There's Baron Ambrose and Baroness Marianne, and there's a young hair on the chin Octamasades, Mistress Raven.
I think our son has that same beard right now.
His is a little more curly than mine. This might have even been in an Amergon's Revenge, possibly. I can't remember. The early days of war fighting. I belonged to exactly 2 war groups in my entire SCA career, and early on was Raven's Levy. Olin and I, Frederick, Titus, Ragnar, Jeff, I'm blanking on his name, SCA name. We had quite the war group. We practiced twice a week, or at least every weekend, war maneuvers. And it's like going to basketball practice and you want to play, but you just practice. And there we are, a little bit older. Ragnar twisted his knee, so I was holding him up and Titus was holding me up. So it's kind of, for me, that was friends helping friends. Hanging out, we're supporting each other. Another Ravens Levy photo. Good group of folks. This was my first 2 squires. Now Sir Rodrigo and Octar,
Who's a pelican now.
who is a pelican now, and chose to continue being my squire, which I am thankful for. A lot of my fighting, these guys inspired me. These guys were always there for me, no matter what.
Rod was like your
Rod was like my life coach for fighting.
yep. And Oktar is always there, as you can see sort of in this picture. He holds a shield up to shade you. He's always got a drink for you. He's just amazing.
The first champions tournament that I won, I was going through it. I was kind of having a hard time. I was just in fighting in general. I couldn't quite find my groove. And Rodrigo comes up to me and he says, "Why are we here, boss?" I'm like, "What?" It's like, "Why are we here?" I said, "Well, we're fighting." He's like, "You're not fighting. This isn't you. Get out there and show them what it's about." And he just kind of fired me up and kind of flipped that switch for me in that tournament, and just everything, you know, all the thoughts go away, and all of a sudden you're focused on the next fight, not the last fight, not the lay on call. You're just in the moment. And he helped me flip that switch that day. My guys. This is my newest squire, who abandoned me for college. She's awesome. She's graduated. She Facebook posted that she might actually be coming back out to fight after COVID is over.
I saw that.
This is Aziza. So this is when we were exchanging O's at 12th night. Getting her belt. And then she was levitating because she was happy. And she gifted me a handmade oil lamp with my arms on it. It was very cool. A story about her. I'd known her for a long time. I think since, well, she was, I don't even know how old she was in this picture. Maybe 17.
She had just turned, I think she had just turned 18.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I was her first fight of her Sweet 16 when she came out with her Sweet 16 baldric on. And she had so much passion for what she was doing. And I had not planned to take any more squires. And she came up and asked me to be a squire, and there was no way I could turn her down. I just thought she was so amazing, and she kind of helped to revitalize my love for the SCA and fighting as well. This is a gift from my squire Octar. He traded shoes. I can't quite remember how many pairs, to Ugo and Torfin and Arnsbjorn and Grendel Squire. And they all did pieces of this. And then I believe Ugo assembled it all. Torfin cast Some of the pieces, Ugo did some brass work here, and Brendel Squire did the blade, and I believe Arnspear did the handle. So that was pretty amazing. There she is again with her mom. This was right after I got knighted. The big arm around me is Olin's, my squire brother. This was before we were all standing around, and Alfred said, "Man, I need a drink." And I looked at my squire brothers now that I was a knight, and I said, "Squire, bring me a beer." And if you've ever seen Olin's sideways grin that makes you pucker, he's like, he gave me that and said, "Yes, sir," and came back with several beers, and mine had the lid off. I did not drink that beer. This is my family, my son Sam and Molly, or Skunka, and I don't know if Molly has a SCA name yet.
She just is calling herself Molly.
Molly.
And those kids are a lot older now.
Yep. Oh yeah, Sam is taller than I am and twice my size. My beautiful inspiration, the one that keeps me fired up, keeps me on the right path. I just like this picture. I think it's cool. Here we are again. And there's my knight and squire brothers at the time. I love this picture because Alfred looks so proud of us, or scared of us, or like he's going to squish us. I'm not sure, but these guys are family. And here's our extended family. Here's all the Shiv of Alfred's line, I think, that's associated with it. Everybody in this picture except for Fiach wore my chain when they were knighted. So the chain started with me and went to each one of these amazing individuals. There they are, a little more sweaty with squires in tow. My fam again. Me with my champion's cloak peeking up there, looking up at my wife, I believe, when she was getting an award.
My court barony.
There you go. Me making my challenge as a 12th night. As champion. Heading out with all the other awesome champions. Trying not to get into trouble. Offering my sword to my king. Being goofy. One of my all-time favorite kings, and there are quite a few. This was at a Sport of Kings.
This
A boy and his king.
This is the first of your Cuddles with Kings series.
This was a good day. This is the day I got my lion from Ian and Gwyneth. I still look back at the video and I was so oblivious. I had no idea what he was even talking about.
I haven't seen the video. That's cool.
My family giving me love. And then my favorite shots to kill people with are the offside deep when they're looking ahead and I'm in their ear. So thank you, Duke Cedric, for the opportunity to hit you in the back of the head. This is one of my favorite pictures with Duke Sven, one of several. We had this great just hill in the shade, just surfing the Sven wave.
Yeah, like that esoteric. Like, I'll never forget the first time you told me to surf the Sven wave, and I'm like, but I feel like the wave. I'm not the surfer. Are you the surfer?
You feel like the wave on the rock?
Well, I don't know if I think he's a rock, but
I like to surf it. Even when the wave pounds you into the beach, it's still a good time. And just to prove that I have war fought, and I do war fight some, there's me in the red with Duke Tiernan behind, punching a hole. That was the last Ontario West where I got to fight in.
A long time ago.
A long time ago. This is me at a little retreat with
Dagmar.
Dagmar, thank you. At her aunt's place, doing some spinning, just to show a little gentler arts. I love fiber arts. This was this was a bye fight after now Duke Eric, before he was a Duke, had just taken me out of this crown. And I asked the king if I could fight the bye. And we turned it up to 10 and we went to town. Sorry, Eric. This is Tazio. He always was around with a shield and a sword. So whenever we got the chance, we would do a little bit of fighting. This didn't end well for me. I'm pretty sure he killed me. Another one of my inspirations, and a guy that you could get lost in the fight with, Arminius, Sir Arminius. And he was a lot of fun to dance with. I think this was when I finaled in Crown, getting carried around when I got my my rose. Yeah, this was a great Ursulmus fight with Sven. I think we're both single sorting it here, and you can just tell by the footwork that it was fast and furious. I don't remember the outcome, but I'm sure it was dynamic. This I'm getting, I believe it's the shield. What's the
Old Shattered Shield.
thank you, the old shattered shield for Valor on the Field from Duke Gavin. That was pretty cool of him.
And oh, you already said what it's for. Sorry.
So the cool thing about the shield, and I think they've built it up and rebuilt it, is it's pretty battered and beat, and every recipient of the shield leaves their mark on the shield. So whether you stick an old piece of armor or some broken piece of something, or an old sock or part of your belt or piece of chain, whatever's battered and bruised, you stick on the shield, and then they add your name to the shield.
And it's enormous.
Yeah, it's probably about 36-inch, 38-inch round shield.
What did you put on it?
I think I put a scale, and I've had it a couple of times. Maybe an old gauntlet. I can't remember. There's a lot of paraphernalia on there. Another work group I belong to. I just thought this was hilarious. No shit, there I was. Stories are pretty prevalent in the SCA. My friend here, Sir Roland von Bern, started a unit called Stockschmiers, and we were a Landsknecht war unit, pretty much made up of cowboys, and Stockschmiers is a stick pain, and we definitely delivered a bit of stick pain and had a great time. Guys like Kjartan would fight with us, and Sven, and Tiernan, and oh, funny story. Tiernan's gonna hate me for this one. So in Landsknecht, as you do, you have to have a cod piece, because why else would you wear it unless you get a flaunt a cod piece around? So we had all made cod pieces, and we're driving down to, I can't remember if it was a West War or an inland war of some sort. But we all had our cod pieces, and we were talking about it. And Tiernan's like, well, I didn't make one. So I busted out my leather kit and handed it to him. So on the couple-hour drive we're on, he could make one. So he gets it cut out and he's sewing it together. And by the time he's done and we get there, it's about that big. With seam allowance and stuff, it had shrunk. And he's just like, I'm not wearing that. so he went without the cod piece that weekend. Love you, Tiernan. And just a picture of teaching, because when I got knighted and sort of stepped away a bit from Ulfred, as far as trying not to take up as much of his time, although he was always willing to give it, teaching sort of helped me replace that need for a mentor. I'm always somebody who needs to bounce ideas off of people and learn from the feedback and from the process. So teaching sort of filled that for me. So I really enjoy talking through things, and it's helped me travel. I've gotten to travel up to BC a couple of times to teach. I've gotten to travel to Salt Lake City, out to sorry, I got Firehead on, so now I'm forgetting things. To Duke Sean's and do some teaching out there. I've gone up to Edmonton to teach. And I feel like every time I've gone and taught a class, I've changed the culture a little bit, added something, taken something from that culture to help me be better. So
Part of that travel too for you was the 3 times that you were kingdom champion. You traveled a lot and taught a lot during those times.
Yeah, but as champion, I traveled a lot in kingdom, but our kingdom's pretty big. So yeah, I traveled all the way down. We did night chivalry road shows all the way down to the border and then all the way up. And then to augment that with Rifkin's awesome implementation of the tourney circuit, anybody who was involved in that was enriched. One of my other favorite people, Duke Vic. We had some really great crown fights and in the last decade. That's a pretty good time. There's Roland. We were sporting our beards at a 12th night. Kind of unruly bunch.
I miss that
And
beard.
one of my favorite queens. She wanted to arm wrestle.
Why is someone sitting on you?
To hold me down. That's Roland. He's helping me because she was strong. And then one of my favorite SCA gifts, my helmet bag. This I got from one of my favorite people, Rifkin. Funny story here. She gifted several people these cool armor bags, and I mean, she got me. She's got cool material inside. She's got the Yoda on the outside. She's kind of personalized it with the Surf the Storm. And she put a card inside, and I'm sure everybody's had a bit of personalness to it, and I leave that card in there. And I was cleaning my armor bag out years ago when I had kind of disenfranchised a bit, but I was looking at my stuff, thinking about, well, maybe I got to get back into this. And I pulled my helmet out to make sure it was cleaned up and the leather was good. And there was this card in the bottom with a very personal and inspirational note. And it was very much appreciated. Oh, Vic's in here twice the love. I've done some equestrian, thanks to Earl Sir Edward Ian Anderson, who was also part of my early SCA, him and Grendel and all those guys hanging out, asking squires questions that there's no right answer to, making us think. And one of my other all-time favorite people, if not favorite kings, Duke Sven, getting some love. And I think that concludes my little picture thing.
Okay, well, why don't we talk a little bit while I, in the background, try to make the video work. You sort of just did a big drive-by by your lion, and I kind of want to talk about your lion because it's a big deal in our kingdom to get a lion, and I know that you were sort of blown away by it. So if you could just sort of talk about what it means to you and such, that would be great.
So I never even, I knew what a Lion of Antir was. To me, a Lion of Antir is foreign, is these heroes. And I never thought of myself that way. I'm just somebody that goes out there and does what I do. I do what I does. I always try and treat people with the respect they're due. They're here playing the SCA and we're all nobles, and support, you know, my baron, baroness, my king, my friends. Try and, you know, when you step on the field, I step on it with my inspiration's honor, and I try and always leave with the same weight that I stepped onto the field with. I'm a knight of Antir, so when I step onto the field, I'm carrying my brother and sisters in the chivalry's honor. I'm representing my king, my kingdom. If I'm traveling, if I'm in the West, when we went down to the West, I tried to leave an impact, you know, help them set up, help them take down, show them what Antirian knights are made of. So that's just always been, you know, again, back to Master Timothy, that's just what you do. Back to Alfred, back to my squire brothers. I mean, that's what we did. So nothing that I did up to that felt like it was any different than what we always do. So it was really a shock when Ian said my name, and I still didn't really realize what it was that he had in his hands and what the lion meant that he had given me. I got it here somewhere. Until that like last moment. So, I mean, I love it. It's an amazing gift. And I hope to always be worthy of that. And just like being a member of the chivalry, being a member of, pardon me, being a line of Ontier, I don't want to let any of those people down. I want to try and lift my kingdom up, carry it whenever I can.
Okay. I think I got the video to work, so I'm gonna try that one more time. Please let it work this time.
Please.
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Okay, here we go.
4, 3, 2, 1.
I even pushed the right button.
Oh, it's
All right,
working.
it was working.
Oh,
4, 3,
I can't hear it.
2, 1.
Listen up, y'all, cause this is it. The fight that I'm bringing is Octalicious. Octalicious definition make them squires go loco. They want his measure, so they all try to steal his mojo. You can see him, you can't be him. Moves ain't easy, moves ain't sleazy. He's got reasons why he slings them turning rounds just come so easy. Octalicious. But he ain't discourteous, and if you were suspicious, all that shit is fictitious. Moves are epic. He puts that fight on rock, and they be lining down the block just to watch what he got. Moves so vicious, they're hot, flow so ferocious. He put that fight on rock, fight so passionate. They want a slice of what he's got. He's Octalicious. Octalicious death, Octalicious death, Octalicious death. Octalicious definition, make them squires go crazy. They all need him, want to be him, come with empty cup. Hey, train me, he's the O to the C, to the T, to the A. And can't no other fighter throw it down like him. He's Octalicious. His moves stay vicious. He's up in the gym, just working on his fitness for all witness. He puts that fight on rock, and they be lining down the block just to watch what he got. Moves so vicious. They're hot, but so ferocious. He puts that fight on rock, fight so passionate. They want a slice of what he's got. He's Octalicious. Maybe, if you really want to train, then get some patience. Maybe then you'll learn his ways. Oh, the blows like crazy. Oh, the steps so blazing. His moves amazing. They'll make you crazy. To the A, to the Liciousouc, T-A, to the Liciousouc, T-A, to the Liciousouc, T-A, to the... Every time I turn around, squires gather round. Always looking for the answer, and I want to say it now. Never ever tell after, yeah, I already know, cause that will kill your chance. Yeah, that's a bad note. We're on it down like a little bit conceited, but don't be repeated. No drama, not needed. What I'm trying to tell is you feel like a pill, cause they say he's Octalicious, but he ain't discourteous. And if you were suspicious, all that shit is fictitious. His moves are epic. He puts that fight on rock, and they be lining down the block just to watch what he got. 4, 3, 2, 1. His moves stay vicious. He's Jim, working on his fitness, and we're all the witnesses. He puts that fight on rock, and they'll be lining down the block just to watch what he got. So vicious. His moves are vicious. So vicious. He's Octalicious. Moves so vicious. So vicious. Those moves vicious. He's Octalicious. O-C-T-A to the Liciousouc. T-A 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 to the Liciousouc.
Bum ba-dum, bum ba-dum ba-dum. Who's the greatest fighter in all the known world? Octamasades, Octamasades, Octamasades. Forever let us hold his banner high, high, high.
Who's the greatest fighter in all the known world? Octamasades, Octamasades, Octamasades. Forever let us hold your banner high, 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 high.
All right, I will stop sharing now.
Oh,
How awesome was that?
that was definitely epic.
Yeah, so we have to really thank Her Excellency Fia from Artemisia for agreeing to do the
I thought
vote
that was her
for
voice.
us.
She is awesome.
Yeah, she did amazing.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
So that's what we've been planning.
That was pretty awesome.
I think I could have just taken the Duncan section and done that one in slow mo. Because I love
Hi,
that
Duncan.
because it's not poor Duncan. It's more about how fierce and controlled and controlling and intense you are. Anytime I feel like I need to figure out how to believe in myself, I watch that shit.
That day, everything just was gel. I can still remember the feeling that day. It was just when you walk up and you just know that there's no hope for anybody else because you just, it's just, I mean, it's that mental feeling where you're just, your mind space is so fast and it doesn't matter what else is going on.
Yeah, I hope I can figure that out. But
it doesn't.
It definitely stole Duncan's hope.
Those are few and far between. Yeah. Well, if you can beat somebody mentally, physically, it's easy.
Well, yeah. I mean, the mental part, you could tell where in that set you had the mental part, and I mean his whole body language changes, right?
And you feed on that.
Yeah.
You somebody gives you that, and it's like you pull out that straw and just stick it in and just suck up that anguish or whatever. It sounds kind of bad, but I mean, no, it's what you.
That might be my new favorite quote. I'm gonna pull out the straw, stick it in, and suck it up.
Suck out the anguish.
And the anguish.
But when somebody reaches that level of frustration and you can feel it, it's palpable, and you can just sit there. I used to tell Roland all the time. Roland would come up to practice before he was knighted, and that dude was committed. And he would come up every time, and my only goal to beat him would be to get in his head. As soon as I could sit back in the easy chair with my bowl of popcorn in Roland's head, it didn't matter how I was fighting. I could beat him. And then he got past that to where you couldn't get in his head as easy. And the ferocity he would bring is just epic. And then it's like, wow, this guy's going to get knighted soon. And then boom, there it is. So
yeah, that guy hits really hard.
And he moves quick and he reads things, and
he's like a ball of muscles and a 5'5" frame.
We did a Spartan sprint once, and I was helping people at the bottom get over the inverted wall, and then I was trying to climb. I couldn't. He hopped back down, squatted me up the wall, and then we pulled him over it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, strong dude.
Yeah, I love that guy.
So I want to talk more about mentally dominating the fight since we watched you do it. Is there something that you do to get yourself to that point, where you feel like it's yours and you're unstoppable? Because I know you felt that several times in your champion wins as well, right?
Yeah. I mean,
I remember a certain championship where you came over to Duchess Signy and I were sitting there, and I was pretty sure I was pregnant, and you're like, I've got it. I'm taking this. And I'm like, don't. No, it's not a good time. And you're like, I'm doing it. And you did it.
I don't blame that on Hathelwolf.
Okay, let's blame Hath.
That was a fight with Hathelwolf that we just turned it up, and it was one of those fights that just gets your whole spirit burning. And I'm like, oh, I can't stop now. I'm at church. We're going all the way.
Okay, so when does church show up for you, and how do you make it show up?
Well, I try and practice and practice, right? So I try and find, you know, if somebody doesn't like to fight close and I can elicit emotional responses from them or mental responses and steer that, and I fight them close. If they're afraid of speed at range, I will try and play that just to get in that mindset of I don't need to worry about throwing a flat snap. I don't need to worry about where my feet are. If I'm bisecting my opponent, where my toes are turned. I'm just, it's understanding yourself enough to trust that you're ready to go. And then it's just taking in all of those cues that they're giving you. You know, and some people are better at hiding that stuff than others. You know, when you start getting into that top 10% of folks, it's a lot harder to elicit that response unless you are just that big that day. So when I'm fighting somebody, I'm trying to make them uncomfortable. And I always, in my earlier career, you would go into an Eric and I'm facing Duke so-and-so, and I'm worried about the fight. Well, some point in my fighting career, I realized that I don't have to be as worried as they do, because if Duke so-and-so loses to Squire Thorolf Biscaldi, the whiner, the bitcher, that's way worse for them than me losing to Duke so-and-so. So at that point, I'm like, oh, I don't have a problem now with that part of it. There's still certain people that I fight that are harder for me mentally. And there's just some hang up from being an earlier, that I'm still stuck on from being a Squire, it's a mental hitch. But I'll overcome that eventually. But yeah, so it's basically just putting your passion over them like a wet blanket, just kind of make them carry it, right? And find out where they're not happy and
Make them unhappy.
Yeah, just getting in their head, make them do stupid stuff, things they don't want to do, or just don't let them do things. You can watch somebody. I've done this at practice before just to assess where people are at. You go in and just shut somebody down. I'm not trying to kill them. I'm just controlling the fight, and I'm frustrating them. And they start with frustration, and then they go to fear, right? Because they're like, oh shit, now I'm stuck. Nothing's working. I can't do anything. And then they get angry because they're like, what the hell? And as soon as they go angry, the fight's done. I mean, it could be done at frustration, but if you're already there, you might as well just take it all the way and go past anger to just hopelessness, right? I mean, it's a little emotional roller coaster. And if you can get somebody into that psyche and you can start figuring out when they're transitioning between different parts of that and you practice that, then taking it into a tournament, it's another one of those big mind things now, right? It's not small mind. It's not something I have to think about. It's something that just is rolling in the background and I'm picking up those cues. So if I start to feel that, now there's days when I think I'm sensing that with somebody and then I execute a mechanic and I get aced because I was too tunnel visioned, right? You get too stuck into something and it creeps up into the front of your mind instead of just letting the lizard brain take control. Ian Gower did that to me in a crown tournament. It was beautiful. I knew exactly when he was going to die, and I died a half second before I executed my technique because he knew when I was going to die, and he was better that day. So, yeah, it's a practice, and you have to be comfortable in your own skin, right? You have to not be so into a technique or a combo. Combos are the death of people, especially not just sword combos, body mechanic combos, thought process combos. If somebody comes in and they want to be analytical the same way every time in a fight, great. If that's as bad as stepping the same way 3 times. You know, that's what Kjartan has always been great at. He'll execute something and then he'll do it again. He'll never give me the 3rd time when I'm really ready for it. You know, so if you aren't ready the 2nd time it happens, if you get the 2nd time, then you lose it. So it's the same with the mental thing and how people approach a fight. Somebody wants to analyze and they're using the same technique for triggers. I just give them a different trigger, a different mental peak, and hope that they'll believe the lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's something you have to practice, just like you practice your technique. Knowing when somebody feels like, you can also feel when somebody thinks that they can just bully you and bowl you over with speed, or when they think that they've won and haha, they've been paying attention to the lie and not the truth. Then as long as you know when you're leading or when you're following, it's part of being in control.
Can you talk a little bit also about how you project energy, and how you fake energy, because you have this whole fuzzy bunny thing, and you're really good at faking tension, or you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people, one, aren't even good at reading it, let alone manipulating their own.
So yeah, it's intensity, it's ferocity. Somebody once asked me to teach ferocity, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have a clue. So I did my blog with those 3 or 4 different levels of ferocity. But yeah, it's just knowing how you're portrayed. So seeing you through your opponent's eyes. If you are all gunned up for that one fast snap and you're just emoting all of this forward, oh, I'm ready to go. People, even if they don't know why, they're not going to come within range because they don't want any of that if they're paying attention. Some people just might get so uncomfortable it causes them to trigger and leap in because they want it to stop one way or the other. Other people will see that and back the hell out. Tim did that to me, Sir Tim. I was on my knees, dialed in, and I had just gotten to the pinpoint of focus because I saw an opening, and he starts to close, and then he just turns around and walks away while I'm sitting there on my knees. And I'm like, it was that obvious, huh? And he's like, yeah. So what you mentioned with the fuzzy bunny. So if I get people that don't want to commit and get into a range that I really feel comfortable executing a technique at, I pull that all in. I give all the social cues of being relaxed and not committed to fighting. I look away, I let my eyes shift, I relax my whole body. I'll flip my hand open so it looks like it's just hanging out there. But what I've done is I've just created a straight line to your temple without having to turn my hand when I throw. I try and give all the social cues. I relax my shield defense in position and just try, hey, gentle bunny, it's okay. I'm just going to pet you. I have a carrot right here for you. It's safe at Octa's house. And then you accelerate. So, you know, a lot of that I learned from fighting with Sven is that timing and the tempo. You have to do that. You have to have some grasp of tempo and timing, because speed is not just how fast you can get your stick to the other person. It's that perceived speed. So if you don't see me accelerate, or you don't understand that I'm accelerating, so I can twist my whole toe and generate power all the way to my hips without my hands ever changing. So if you're locked up here, if I can get you to pay attention to all this, I'm halfway to my shot before it registers that I'm throwing a shot, and now I'm super fast. Or if I can get you to cover your eyes for a heartbeat at the right time, I can shift step to your ear. And when your shield comes down, it's an oh shit moment. So I try and play with that and how my emotion, I won't say it's emotion, but I'll just use that word because it seems to fit, how my emotion or my energy is manipulating my opponent. I don't want to have tells, right? So I don't want to be all, sometimes you get so tunnel visioned and that's a huge tell. If you're like, oh, I don't want that. So they step offline or they step out and make you re-engage and move. So trying to know what kind of energy you're emoting, I think is really important in a fight.
Is that the same thing that you do when you do sticky hands with Qigong? Playing with energy and
yeah, I really enjoy push hands. I find that's also helpful to teach people how to move because they can feel. I did that when I went up to Penticton to teach a class. I can't remember his name. Really.
Olin.
What?
Little Olin?
No, not Little Olin. Tall, curly hair, and for the life of me, I'm just blanking on his name. But one of my students. What?
Was it Todd, the guy that had the hip problem?
No.
Oh, okay.
One of my students I couldn't get them to move the way I was trying to teach. Couldn't get him to feel, because what I try and teach is feel what you're doing. I can teach you how to throw a blow, but if you don't feel it, you can't replicate it well. So I try and get people to feel stuff. So about halfway through the day, I just took my gauntlets and my helmet off, and I put up my hands, and I said, touch my hands. And we just started moving. And then we started walking around the parking lot that way. And I moved him with me. And afterwards, it clicked for him. He was able to feel the body mechanics a bit. And I think that helped him evolve. So that's a little different than pushing your energy and stuff, but it's more about feeling and that. So push hands is all about lying in misdirection and taking energy and pushing it back and having a good root. And all that, and understanding your own body mechanics. So I see a lot of people only want to understand themselves. And I think that works for a lot of people because they're the ones that can just impose their nature onto their opponent. I'm not that skilled. I don't always have the cleanest technique possibly, or the best defense. That's my biggest weakness, I would say, is my defense. But I'm good at understanding myself. So I'm better at understanding my opponent, the nature of how they move, how they have to move, where's their foot pointed, where's their balance at. And understanding that, you can understand where they have to go, if they cheat, where they might be able to go, and just where they can't go. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't.
So during COVID, you have been super, super active with the Kaid Pell group and doing a whole bunch of work.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit and what's motivating you and
Well,
are we see more of you on the field when this is over?
Oh yeah, I'm working on my new Under Armour kit,
Cool.
or under tunic kit. But
I'm working on the soft kit.
I met Sir Helgi at the last Sport of Kings. I didn't know there were two Helgis down in the West in Kaid. So far all the Helgis I've met are pretty awesome people. And I didn't really know him very much, but fortunately I have people that put my video up online, and he had seen a lot of my video. So he was hurt, but he was videotaping, and he came up with two other folks that were fighting, and we started talking, and I instantly recognized him as one of my geek people and he's got a great mind for breaking stuff apart. And I ask questions that make him think. He gives me answers that teach me new things, and vice versa. And we've really learned a lot. So the Kaid, they have a Zoom practice every night at 7. We might be moving it. I haven't been as active as I'd like to be the last few weeks because work and life has been a little more stressful. And it's freaking dark and cold now. But so we get folks from Kaid are showing up to that. We have several folks from Lockdock that have been coming out. And the nice thing about getting to do these online is we're getting better at teaching online without being able to be right there. But we're getting to see the changes. Yantu's probably watching because that's just how he rolls. And I've got to watch him from when I first started doing this Pell practice to now. They get to fight. They get to go out and have certain groups can get together. And so he will go and do video, and we'll talk about it, and we'll teach, and we'll go back and forth. And in just, I don't know, since July, did I join them in July? I don't know. It hasn't been very long, but maybe even, I don't know. Watching his style evolve is amazing. He is learning and evolving, and through his learning and exploration is teaching me things about myself. The first thing he said to me when I showed up to do the Pell practice, doesn't know me from Adam or anything, he's like, "You look like a hitter." And I'm like, "What do you mean by that?" "Well, you're hitting your Pell really hard. You just seem like a hitter." I'm like, "Oh." And at first I was a little taken aback. I'm like, "No, he doesn't know anything about me." And that's an honest perception. I need to look at what I'm doing and refine my technique on the Pell, so I'm not just a hitter on the Pell, and clean up my technique. So I really worked on that. And we've explored footwork. Oh my God, my whole world. And you were talking about hip rotation. I have a whole new series on hip rotation based on your balance point of how your hips rotate, whether it's a swivel or a door. And we've explored all of these new things. And then you add a new body mechanic, and what does that do to all of your technique? All of your sword technique changes slightly, and things open up. The other funny thing is we're all breaking our swords on the damn Pells because we're doing it so much. So I went from my 36-inch sword, all of my swords break to 34 inches, and then I cut another 2 inches off. So now I'm playing with 32, 34, and 36-inch swords with my buckler, with my regular shield, and all the body mechanics that go into that. And before we started Pell practice, my shoulder was killing me all the time. And now that I've been slowly integrating my right arm back into it, I have no pain. My knees are good. My footwork. I read the book, The Liar, the Cheat, and the Thief. Very great book on body mechanic. I think only part of it translates heavily into what we do, but I picked up this whole sun drill, and I made a piece of canvas that I taught a class with, and really makes you look at your footwork and transitioning from lead legs. And things that we all sort of do intrinsically, but now making it purposeful, learning it purposefully, so that then I don't have to think about it. I used to have to think about step, ball step change, step, ball step change, and I overcame that. And now with these Pell practices we've been doing, I walk through my kitchen differently now.
Can you talk about your power toe?
My power toe.
So somebody says, you mentioned your toe being pointed a few times. Where do you point your toe and why?
Depends on where I want to go, and what foot's forward. So when I close, or when I address my opponent, giving away all my tells now, I try and, depending on how I want to approach the fight, I try and bisect my opponent with a foot. Squaring up with somebody only gives the advantage to the fighter that's ready to fight that fight. And sometimes I want to go square, but that's usually in close, because I want to drive the bus. I want to be big. I want to absorb all the space, and I just want to wet blanket my opponent. I want to just take everything out of what they've got, throw my body into their blows. But when I'm approaching a fight, I like to bisect my opponent's box. So if I'm leading with my shield leg, stop it. If I'm leading with my shield leg, I like that to be in between their toes. That way I have the advantage to the step.
Is this because you said box?
I know. The
Okay.
10-year-old's coming out in her.
All right.
And she's pointing her nipple hat at us. So, and then when you approach, if I step with my toes going the same way I'm moving, that's more of a move through or a step weight transfer. If I step and I land with my heel and my toes pointing at my opponent, that gives me more of a drive to go to the opposite side of where I've stepped, or to orient immediately, put them in the box, and they have to turn now. And if they turn and I'm a step ahead, now I get a step back into where they're in my box, I'm not in their box. So foot placement is really big. I always teach your knee and your toes always point the same direction. So you can't change direction without moving your toes.
I'm a big proponent of the bisecting too. Like
Yeah.
it gives you like right off the bat an advantage, especially when your toes are pointed the same way and you're still both defensively and offensively minded.
Yeah, if I can get into a mid-range without any threat or pressure, I'll step in there with my shield leg, offside shot, and then big slide step with my left foot puts me in a great butt wrap. It's just I step right under the sword, and it's a butt wrap, or kidneys or back of the head or whatever I could hit. So yeah.
It also seems like part of your style is sort of slipping blows. Like you move your body in a way that your opponent's sword doesn't connect. How did you discover that was something that you were going to do, and how did you train that?
I don't remember where I heard it first, but it's kind of like the eye of the storm, right? And I know it from my own blows. If I throw a sweet wrap, if somebody steps inside the power curve and it lands before the power hits, there's no power. So I'm like, well, shit, I can put my butt. If I step and throw my butt into their hand, the wrap's not going to land. That came out wrong.
Foiled by the butt.
Foiled by the forced growth.
But
No, but you just step into it, or you tilt yourself inside that circle that they're coming. If they're not throwing just a regular flat snap, if they're, the hand is the safest place to be. So I try and maneuver with that. I really like, it's sometimes to my detriment, but I like the dance of the fight. I like the flow. I like finding that lines inside measure and tempo changes. And I've done it, or I've shown up at a crown, I'm injured, I'm going to fight business-like. And I can business-like fight, and I can win, on a good day, a good amount of fights, but it's no fun. There's no passion in it. It's not fun for anybody to watch. But if I'm out there and we're having a good time, and there's some explosion, and we're surfing the wave, and we're dominating, or the fight is really, we've got a lot of, like you said earlier, we're pushing a lot of energy at one another, and everybody disappears, and it's just the motion of the fight. That's what I live for. I had to learn, because my biggest detriment is stepping to that line of passion and just jumping right in. I don't leave anything back on the other side. I go good, bad, or indifferent. We'll see how the fight goes. So I've learned to teeter on that, because I can't live without it. I don't like fighting business like. That's just not what I do. I like I'm full body. I'm into it, you know, like a kid in a cake. Just go. I'll take a shower afterwards. Let's get in. All right. So
Oh, the visual.
I don't know. I'm all about my metaphors, but I want to be part of that fight. I don't want the narrative to be just me telling a story. I want to live it. I want to know that I won that fight, not just that somebody made a mistake, that I made them make a mistake, that I made them look away and they didn't even know they were dead. Because I want my opponents to feel like it's always my theory, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. If you show up and you put your name down on the list, you deserve the best ride you can get. I don't care if you've been in armor for 3 days or you're a Duke 5 times over. You deserve my absolute best. And my absolute best is not a business like fight. That's just not who I am. So for those 5 seconds or 15 minutes, we're going to go, and it's going to be a totally organic process. And I'm going to let the big mind do all that analytical. We're going to adjust pressure by habit, and we're going to fight. And it's not about what blows we're throwing now. It's about what I can feel where the fight needs to go. Some of my best fights ever I've lost, but I had a fight with Thor I think the one and only time I've ever made it to the finals in an Ursulmus, which if you've been to an Ursulmus, it's par with a crown, I would say, as far as amount of fights, if not more, because it starts with the Sweet 16. And I actually won one of the fights, but in the end, I didn't stop and think about all the people that were around, because nobody existed other than Thorn and myself. And really, the only person that existed was the Eric. That was just one mechanic and movement, and it was so clean. And I can still remember the feeling I got off of him one time. The one time I hit him, I asked him what I did, and he's like, I didn't know what to do. I think it was close to what he said. It might not have been verbatim, but he changed elevation and I fired. And that was like the biggest compliment I ever had, right? And then he mopped the field with me on the next fight. And it wasn't until I got back to the showers where I really, back to your hotel room, looking at all your bruises, kind of dissected that fight in my head, because it was so organic and just so in the moment. I don't know. That's just how I roll.
Cool.
I don't know how else to be.
So somebody asked, who is, one of your favorite people to fight? These are sort of the final 10 questions usually. And who is somebody that you really want to fight that you haven't had a chance to fight?
Oh my goodness. People I love. I mean, shoot, there's so many different people that bring different energy. I love to fight Sven because he's always evolving. You never, at least in my experience, I never get the same fight twice. He'll come back and he'll have incorporated maybe something that he saw me use, and he just takes it and makes it Sven. Or he incorporates something from somebody else that he's learned, or something that he wanted to try. He changes tempos. He can, it's always new. It's always exciting. It's like that's why he's like my epitome of when I say surf the wave, I'm always thinking of Sven, because to this day, I have never been able to out tempo him. I always try and take the fight down to a low enough tempo, so I have enough time to hang with the tempo until that wave gets too big. And then it's just intrinsic, holding on and flowing and hoping that everything I do is in the right spot. So he's always just an amazing fight. I love fighting Kjartan. He and I came up together, and a lot of our styles are different but complementary. So when we fight, it's a very interesting dance, and I really enjoy that dance a lot. God, there's so many people I love to fight. I like fighting Rifkin. I love the precision of her mind and the thought process that you can see all the hours that have gone into perfecting her technique. Every time I'm teaching people about stuff, I talk about little dot, big dot, little dot, because that's all you see if she thrusts you in the face. Little dot, big dot, little dot. That's it. For me, if I could figure out what the tell was, that would be great.
I just have to say, it really pisses me off when people say that thrusting doesn't require any technique, because
are you kidding? I spent half my career not thrusting because I couldn't figure it out. And then Gemini taught me how to thrust. And I
Yeah.
still am not very good at it. It's more of a deterrent than a go-to. I don't use it like you do, not at all. I tried putting a ball up and thrusting the ball, and I gave up after about 20 minutes. This is bullshit.
You just keep doing it, and eventually you'll get better. So
Thank you. I will try. Who else? Arminius. God, I love fighting Arminius. Unfortunately, he is doing what's good for Arminius, which is I'm very happy for, but I miss him. You know, who else? Gosh, there's going to be a lot of people like, what is? I miss fighting Sir Max. I still remember the last 3 fights I had with Max, and he's another one of those guys that gives his passion when he fights. So there's what I like. I like to fight people that give me passion when they fight. It's not that I don't like to fight everybody, but if you understand what I'm saying, a lot of people are great fighters, but they're monotone fighters. They fight at a certain tempo, and they might be very great at what they do, but that's what they do. Other people, you can feel it when you walk by an Eric. I was at Sporting Kings this last time, never met this person, but I could hear it. I'm hearing the stick, and I glance over and I catch a mechanic out of the corner of my eye, and I had to stop and watch her fight. And find out she's Arnsbjorn Squire, and I walked up and introduced myself and just thanked her for getting to watch her fight. Thank her for bringing all that passion that she brought, because I could, yeah, I'm not sure her name,
Astrid.
but see, I'm horrible with names, so I apologize. But it was a joy to watch. I wanted to go get my armor on and fight her because she brings passion.
She really does. I'm really impressed with her.
So I love people that can bring that level of, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a brawl, but passion. It's a ferocity, but it's ferocity through technique and mentality and playing the game. And there's just a difference. You can feel it, smell it, touch it. Those are the people that really get me. I would really like, so people, and Sean, I enjoy fighting Sean. He's very precise, and I love it when I can turn it up and make him go harder, and then you get the full passion of that fight. Yeah, there's so many people.
Like Sean and Michael, Duke Michael, his squire,
Yeah.
have this like whole like lions fight thing. And I think of that as like, I'd rather be fighting in a lion fight where we're both really fighting than fighting somebody who's fighting safe.
Yeah.
Right? It's just so much more fun. And I think that those fights are way more fun to watch too.
Absolutely. When somebody's putting it out there, and I mean, we're bearing it out. We have 5 seconds to 10 seconds to show who we are as an artist, right? I mean, Laurels, and they practice their arts. Painters, I won't say Laurels, let's say painters or seamstresses, or that. I mean, you could take out a seam and redo it. You can adjust something, throw away a drawing and start over. Our fight is pretty much, there's our art. I can't take it back. It is what it is. And it takes two people to, I mean, sometimes you can be an artist just all over somebody. It doesn't matter what they're doing, it'll still be pretty. But when you get two artists working together in conjunction, it's amazing what kind of fight can come out of that. The person I would like to fight, now I can't say that I've never fought them, but I would like the chance again, would be, oh no, my brain just went away. You just interviewed him.
That doesn't, I've
interviewed just
so
2 interviews ago.
Branos.
I would love to fight Branos, because when he came out to teach, my head was very full, but I was also full of it. I thought, oh, okay, this guy, I'm going to lay some stick on this guy. I didn't touch him. I did not touch him with the stick. I had the wrong mental aspect when I fought him that day. Not to say I would have if I had the right mental aspect, but in my current understanding of my art, I would love to be able to paint with him. I would love to be able to share that experience with him.
I think a fight between the two of you would be really cool to watch.
I think it would be
you both play with tension, but you play with it differently.
Yeah. And just from a day with him, I learned a ton. His teaching is splattered on my style. I mean, it's part of it.
Mid-realm Shiv Retreat.
I know.
We're going.
I still want to go to Australia now. I want to go to
I
Lockdown.
want to go to Australia
Meet
too.
all those people that I get to talk to on
Yeah.
the camera. But yeah, so it's not really a person, but it's a style. I want to fight all the passionate people, all the people that want to bring that level of tenacious tenacity, passion to the field. I love that. That's
So
my
we're like at an hour and 45. Yeah. So is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to talk about, or should we do like a final 10?
I think the only other thing really that's helped me on my journey, and not just in fighting, but growing in the SCA, is being Kingdom Champion. That first Kingdom Champion victory opened my mind up. It broke something loose and allowed me to be a victor on the tourney field.
How so?
Huh?
How so?
I think it helped me get over kind of a mind screw, a little bit of a tournament choke, if you will, and allowed me to be the lion that I am. I can impact the Eric. That Eric can be mine if I choose it. and I bring everything, and I've done all my work. So it let me break through that, and I got to owe a lot of that to my squires, Rodrigo, and them being so supportive. My beautiful wife, I can't hardly look at her on the side of the Eric and take in all of the inspiration she gives me without crying.
So let's talk about inspiration and what it means to you and how you use it in a fight.
I got to be careful with it because it can overwhelm. It's like walking onto the Eric in the morning, or when you're starting to armor up and you see people lining up at the list field and getting that adrenaline dump. And if you're a fighter, you know what that is. And that can be a fight or flight, right? That can be so overwhelming to some folks that it makes you want to hurl. Or I've learned to just breathe and just take all that core, knot in your stomach adrenaline rush and breathe it out to my toes and my fingers and my hair, and just let it permeate me and warm me for the day. And that's kind of how that inspiration is. But when you add adrenaline, and then you, especially in like a crown where you're processing, and my whole thing in crown now when I'm processing is I'm not here to introduce me. I'm going to do that later on the field. I'm here to thank my king, but above all, I'm here to introduce my inspiration and make sure everybody knows that this is my anchor. This is what anchors me to reality and anchors me to my humanity. And I have I give her my heart, my love, and my soul, my mind, and she keeps me rooted. And sometimes, even now, it's hard to be a vessel for that. I always do my best, but there's a lot of inspiration that comes from this amazing person that pours her love into her art, into her clothing, for everybody she sews for. It's not just a job. She pours that inspiration into that stuff, all of her art, just like I try and do that with my fighting. I am loving my opponent, which is why sometimes in our sport, the very nature that makes it the best is the same very nature that makes it bad sometimes. When you give that love and you give trust, every time you step on the field, I'm taking on somebody's trust and I'm carrying my inspiration. I have to make sure that I give them their trust back when they leave the Eric, or I never take that trust from them. That's as important to me as my inspiration is, and they walk hand in hand. So when I step on the field to win a tournament and all that is heavy, I've learned that it can be heavy, but not a burden, if that makes sense. It's never not a burden in the sense that, oh God, it's more just knowing that I've practiced enough, that I'm going to make the right calls, that I am mentally mature enough to make the right calls, and to not ever let my adrenaline or my need outweigh my church, my art, my love, my inspiration, the trust of my family. So that's what inspiration means to me. And through being champion, funny story, sorry. First time champion, first time fighting in a crown as a champion, total mind screw. I'm sitting at the front of the frickin' Shiv line next to Duke Dak, next to Duke, you name it. Yes, all of my heroes are behind me in line. How effed up does that feel for little Sir Octamasades to be looking to the right and seeing all of his heroes sitting behind him.
I feel that way after I got my lion. You know, they push you up the OP, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't earned this. I don't deserve to be here.
So,
Yeah.
and then me being nervous, I'm like, Dak sitting next to me, and I'm like, I don't know what we were talking about as far as champion stuff, but you know, he's like my epitome of a kingdom champion. And I said, yeah, the sword's so cool. I had the total urge to chop a watermelon in half with it because it's just so epic. And he looks at me and he says, if you ever do that, I will know. and I was just nervous talking, but it might have almost been something that I would never have done that, but it sure would have been tantalizing to do. But it just meant, yeah, this sword I'm holding has the O's of a lot of Ontarians, knights, laurels, pelicans, you know, a lot of O's get sworn on that sword. A lot of fingerprints get etched into that metal. The heroes and giants that assembled that sword. That's a huge piece of history. That was the hardest thing when you're not champion, is you see somebody carrying that sword and you get this gut, oh shit, they've got my sword. You know, they've got the king's sword. I got to go get that. Oh, wait, it's not my job. I don't have to watch it. But yeah. So yeah, and you are privy to a lot. You know, I served for 3 years. I've been champion for 3 different runs, 6 kings, all a little bit different, all amazing learning experiences. I got to see what it was like to be a king, the hard stuff, the bad choices, the good choices. It was a very different view of the throne from behind. And it was pretty special. I took it pretty serious. And to this day, thanks to Torfin, this is one of my favorite pieces of regalia, is my champion's medallion. So yeah, that was a big part of my career. And for some reason, when it comes to the champions tournament, that's when it's like that practice that you have on the video. Once I get going, it's just how I feel for the rest of the practice. You know, when you get that feeling like you can do no wrong, there's no bad step, there's no bad technique. And the only way you're going to lose is if somebody actually just beats you, because you're not going to beat yourself. I feel like I'm carried in those tournaments for some reason. I just can let everything go. If I could tap into that all the time, that'd be pretty cool. All right, what else we got? What are we doing? Sorry, I'm carrying on.
No, this is good stuff. Good stuff. We can do a final 10. You sort of already did one of them.
Okay.
What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
Role models. No, kidding.
Get out of my burger hole, boy.
Burger hole.
I don't know. It's a toss-up between Knight's Tale and 13th Warrior. Those two. I like the aspect of 13th Warrior when he is first starting out with all the Norsemen and he doesn't speak their language. And I like the idea of being in a strange land and sitting and just observing, taking it in, assimilating it, and growing. And then the feel of Knight's Tale and, you know, making your way and translating, you know, a tournament feel and the excitement there by adding in the modern music. And yes, that's what's happening. We're here to do this. So yeah, and then all the chivalry and stuff in between.
So we kind of made you a sorry, I'm going to interject, Rifkin. We kind of made you a theme song tonight. What is your preferred theme song when you're fighting?
Some people have their death metal. Some people have their Motley Crue. I'm listening to either a little Hotel California or some Bee Gees, Staying Alive, some disco. That's what's going through my mind. So when I'm slaying, I am totally in the disco mindset.
I love that.
I love that too.
I don't fight angry ever.
You like my 5-finger death punch song though, right? Burn it down.
Some days, yeah. you need to make an example out of someone.
I'm joking.
That thigh taco where the meat wraps around your sword and claps on the back of it.
Thigh taco. Oh, the images that brings up.
You're welcome. I left the bruise picture out. I was going to put that in my picture slide where I made the purple W with one sweet overshot below.
All right. What event would you like to go to that you have never been to before?
Ooh. Something probably out of kingdom. I mean, part of me really would like to go to Pennsic. Part of me doesn't really want to go to Pennsic, just because, I don't know, depends on the climate. I would like, or what we were talking about earlier, not really an event, but I would like to go to one of those fighter retreat.
Adult swims
where I get to try a little bit of, like a little sampler from around the kingdoms. That would be really cool. I think Pennsic would be great because I would love to see all the different customs and hear the songs and see the dances and, you know, experience the cultures all at once, right? You get a lot of culture, I would imagine.
You get culture that is just specific to Pennsic down in the bog.
Yeah. It's an adventure.
Okay. Who do you like to watch fight?
Who do I like to watch fight? So many. I mean, I really like watching Arminius fight. I like watching Thorin fight. I like watching Sven fight. I like watching Kjartan fight. I love watching Davin fight. To my detriment. Sometimes when I'm fighting him, I'm watching him fight, and then I get pummeled at a practice. I really like
while I'm fighting him. That's just painful.
I hadn't fought him in so long, and we were up at your place during one of those classes, and the next day we're fighting, and he starts skating in on me, and I was like, ooh, watch his foot and then his hip, and I'm like, ooh, this is neat. I wonder how this is gonna end. And then
yeah, that's how it ended.
Yeah, then I laughed and I apologized for not fighting, and then I started fighting. But I just like watching his flow. And again, it's just watching people that bring the passion for the day. I liked watching Owain fight back in his crown days. All those guys. I really like watching Dave's
Fabric.
What?
Sabric.
Well, I like fighting Saverick. I like watching Antonio fight. Antonio is an interesting balance of precision and passion and tempo. I really like watching him fight. He's very frustrating to fight, but
he's kind of like Skaggy in a way, because he likes to soak up everything and then just wait for you to get frustrated.
Yeah, but there's so many people I like to watch fight. I don't know. I'm not doing everybody justice.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. They have their feelings hurt. That's okay.
I like to watch folks fight when they're there to get the business done and they're not holding back. I don't like people fighting. I don't like watching the fights where people are too calculated to the point where it's, I don't know.
Boring.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a hero in the SCA, and if so, who is it?
Oh my goodness. I have so many. I mean, Ulfred's one of my heroes. He has been and done so much, and he gives so much. And he works hard to understand the people that he's there to help. And I think that's pretty evident with the line of knights he's created or assisted down their path. Thorin is king to me. He is amazing, and his ability to maintain a level of just pinpoint accuracy and structure in his fighting, no matter who he's fighting, it just gets faster. Sven's one of my heroes.
Okay, I'm gonna cut you off.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. What book should everyone on the path of knighthood read?
Just one?
Well, you can throw out a couple, but the books aren't going to have hurt feelings. So
Um, well, if we're talking, you know, when I'm reading those books, it's more for the prowess and the technique than the chivalry and the virtues. So Musashi, Five Rings, Art of Becoming by Peter Ralston. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. I could read those three and just keep rocking back and forth through them and continue to grow with just those three books. There's a lot more, but those are like the three foundational books for me.
yeah, I have the Book of Five Rings on Audible, and I just listen to it when I commute, and I learn something new every time I go through it. Okay, if you could change one thing about the SCA, what would it be?
About the whole SCA?
You don't have to think big. It could be something small.
I think if I could change something locally, just for the pure pageantry of it, I really, really loved the crown in the West with the banners. Everybody brings a banner and puts it on the field, and the banners are tipped and removed as the fighters have lost or are removed. I just think that's really cool.
It is pretty cool.
That's something I like. That's a really neat tradition.
Cool. Win crown and institute it for your crown.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we can make a tradition. You can, people copy you because it's cool.
There you go.
What's the most important trait for a successful fighter?
Beginner's mind. Without beginner's mind, you can't learn anything. Like I said, I learn every time I teach. On purpose, I learn every time I teach, because I look at it not from how I know it should be done, but explain it how I currently am doing it. And then as we work through it and help people learn it and get feedback, the truths change. So always be open to it, beginner's mind. And then the other phrase that I'm very fond of is believe, behave, become. Believe in something and then behave. So if you believe that you are going to be a successful fighter, you have to behave like a successful fighter and do the work, and the becoming is easy. If instead of having knighthood as a goal, believe, behave, become.
And then it just sort of happens.
Yep, the becoming, if you believe and you behave, the rest is easy.
I think that's super important, because I think a lot of people make knighthood this end all be all, and it's super not. And it can be very disheartening if you never reach it, or even if you reach it and then you're like, what's next? So if you are believing, behaving, becoming, and that's like, you learn to love the process, it's just makes life so much more enjoyable.
And it applies to the other peerages as well.
All of them, yeah.
The people, again, that I see aren't the people always the winners. It's the people exhibiting passion for what they do, for their art. Those are the people that you see.
Well, they're the winners.
There you go. Victory conditions.
All right. I gave you a little bit of crap tonight, but you are my brother-in-law, so I'm allowed.
All good.
So I think we should probably end. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Octamasades, for talking to us. I know it's probably a little weird for you to have your wife and your sister-in-law sitting here for 2 hours grilling you, and you've dealt with our homage very well. You only got a little bit red. But that's probably going to go live on YouTube, so it's around forever.
I get the chance to final and crown. It's going to live more than YouTube.
Well, I'll have to re-edit it then.
And again, thank you, Fia, and thank you, Laurelyn, and
and Iranius.
Thank you.
That was the cutest
mad dance moves.
So cute. Do we want to talk about next week?
Yeah, I am interviewing Duke Christopher of Houghton on Sunday, and then Duke Ibrahim from Artemisia on Monday.
And then I have Tuesday, Maria Kargashina, who is an awesome Ontarian Laurel.
And then on Wednesday, the 18th, we're having Viscountess Gwendolyn from the East Kingdom on. She was a Princess of Drachenwald by right of arms back in the day, and she has a very, very, very interesting story. And if you're interested at all in sort of the history and the development of women fighters in the SCA, she's a must watch because her story is incredible.
Awesome.
So
All right. Thank you,
thanks
everybody.
everyone for joining us. I'm sorry we kept you a little long.
Good night.
Night.